Using the Earth's resources. The Earth provides us with everything we need for warmth, shelter, food, and transport. These resources are split into two types. Finite resources, like fossil fuels and metal ores, are being used up far faster than they can be replaced, so they will eventually run out. Renewable resources, like timber and fresh water, can be replaced as quickly as we use them. Sustainable development means meeting the needs of people today without damaging the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. In the exam, chemistry helps sustainability in many ways, improving farming and agriculture and developing new materials, as well as finding ways to reuse and recycle limited resources. Know the difference between finite and renewable clearly. Potable water. Potable water means water that's safe to drink. Importantly, potable water is not the same as pure water because it still contains low levels of dissolved salts and some microbes. In the UK, we make potable water from fresh water by choosing a suitable source such as a reservoir, river, or aquifer, then passing it through filter beds to remove solids, and finally, sterilising it to kill microbes. Sterilising can be done with chlorine, ozone, or ultraviolet light. In very dry countries with little fresh water, seawater must be desalinated by distillation or reverse osmosis, but this uses large amounts of energy. In the exam, remember the two clear steps for fresh water: filtration to remove solids, then sterilisation to kill microbes. Desalination is only used when there's not enough fresh water because it's expensive and energy hungry. Required practical analysis and purification of water. In this required practical, you analyse water samples and then purify one by distillation. First, you test the pH of each sample using a pH meter or universal indicator. Then you find out how much dissolved solid is present by evaporating a measured volume of the water and weighing what's left behind. Finally, you purify the water using distillation. You boil the water so it evaporates. Then you cool the steam so it condenses back into a separate clean container, leaving the dissolved solids behind. In the exam, remember that distillation works because the dissolved solids have very high boiling points, so they stay behind in the flask while the pure water evaporates and is collected. The distilled water should have a neutral pH of 7 and leave no solid when evaporated. Wastewater treatment. Large amounts of wastewater are produced by homes, sewage, agriculture, and industry, and this must be treated before it safely returns to the environment. The treatment happens in stages. First, screening removes large solids and grit. Next, sedimentation lets the waste settle in a large tank, separating into a liquid called effluent on top and a solid sludge at the bottom. The sludge is then broken down by anaerobic digestion, so that's without oxygen, which also produces useful biogas. The effluent is treated by aerobic biological treatment, where bacteria use oxygen to break down the remaining organic matter and harmful microbes. In the exam, learn the order: screening, then sedimentation, then anaerobic digestion of the sludge, and aerobic treatment of the effluent. Note that treating sewage needs less energy than desalinating seawater, which is a common comparison question. Life cycle assessments. A life cycle assessment, or LCA, is carried out to work out the total environmental impact of a product across its entire life. It looks at 4 main stages: getting the raw materials, manufacturing the product, using the product, and finally disposing of it at the end of its life. At each stage, the LCA considers things like the use of resources, the energy needed, and any pollutants released to the water, land, or air. In the exam, be ready to explain why LCAs are not fully objective. Measuring the effect of pollutants involves making value judgments, so the results can be biased. For example, a company might design an LCA to make its own product look better. Energy and material can be used fairly accurately, but the impact of pollution is harder to judge. Reduce, reuse, recycle. The simplest way to make resources last longer and reduce environmental damage is to use less of them in the first place. The 3 R's put this in order. Reducing means using smaller quantities of raw materials and energy. Reusing means using an item again for the same or a new purpose, like refilling a glass bottle. Recycling means processing used materials, such as melting down metals or glass, so that they can be used in new products. Recycling metals in particular saves a huge amount of energy and ore compared with extracting fresh metal from the ground. In the exam, the order of preference is reduce first, then reuse, then recycle. A strong point to make is that recycling uses much less energy and conserves limited resources compared with mining and extracting new raw materials.